Hello and welcome to the Expensive Coins History Channel. Do you have one of these rare and most valuable top 4 Roosevelt dimes? Take a moment and really think about that question. Because hidden inside millions of ordinary pocket change coins circulating across the United States for decades are a few pieces that have quietly become the focus of intense attention from serious collectors. If you happen to own one of them, you may be holding something that could completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your drawer, your wallet, or that jar of spare change in your home. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. On this channel, we explore the rare coins that most people overlook but collectors are desperately searching for. These are the kinds of coins that turn ordinary change into extraordinary discoveries. And today we are talking about 4 Roosevelt dimes that have captured the attention of collectors and investors alike. The Roosevelt dime has always been one of the most recognizable coins in American history. Introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the design quickly became a staple of American currency. For most people, the Roosevelt dime is simply a 10-cent coin that passes quietly from hand to hand every single day. But for those who truly understand the world of coin collecting, some Roosevelt dimes are anything but ordinary. In fact, a small number of them have become incredibly valuable because of unusual minting conditions, limited availability in pristine condition, and the intense demand that develops when collectors realize just how difficult it is to locate certain examples. Today we begin with the first coin on our list, a coin that at first glance looks completely ordinary but has developed an extraordinary reputation among serious collectors. The 1985 P Roosevelt Dime. Now, if you live in the United States, there is a very good chance you have seen a 1985 dime at some point in your life. The Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous number of dimes that year, and most of them entered circulation just like any other coin. They were used in vending machines, passed across store counters, dropped into parking meters, and carried around in pockets and purses for years. Because of that, most people assume the 1985 P dime is extremely common and therefore not worth any special attention. But experienced collectors know that the story is not quite that simple. What separates a truly valuable coin from a common one is rarely the year alone. Instead, it is a combination of factors that slowly reveal themselves over time. Sometimes the key factor is condition. Sometimes it is a striking error that went unnoticed at the mint. And sometimes it is the gradual realization that very few pristine examples survive decades of circulation. The 1985 P Roosevelt dime sits right at the intersection of these possibilities. When these coins were first minted in Philadelphia, they were created with the same intention as every other circulating coin. They were meant to be used, worn down, and eventually replaced. No one at the time expected that collectors decades later would be carefully examining these small silver-colored coins under magnification. But over time, something interesting began to happen. Collectors started noticing that truly exceptional examples of the 1985 P dime were surprisingly difficult to find. Coins that had full detail, strong strikes, and clean surfaces without heavy contact marks began attracting attention at coin shows and auctions. Why does this matter? Because when collectors realize that high-quality examples of a particular coin are scarce, demand begins to grow. And when demand grows while supply remains extremely limited, the value of those coins can increase dramatically. This is exactly the kind of situation that has slowly developed around the 1985 P Roosevelt dime. Imagine this scenario for a moment. Somewhere in the United States, a small jar of old coins sits on a shelf in a home where it has been untouched for years. Maybe those coins were collected as spare change. Maybe they were saved by someone who simply liked the idea of holding on to old currency. Inside the jar might be dozens of dimes from different years, most of which appear completely ordinary. But within that group could be a single coin that stands apart, a 1985 P Roosevelt dime that somehow escaped decades of heavy circulation. A coin that still holds its sharp design details, its original luster, and the kind of eye appeal that collectors immediately recognize. To the average person, it might still look like just another dime. But to the right collector, it becomes something entirely different. Coin collecting has always been driven by the thrill of discovery. The idea that something small and overlooked can turn out to be incredibly valuable is part of what keeps collectors searching through coin rolls, estate sales, flea markets, and old family collections. And the Roosevelt Dime series has produced more surprises than many people realize. The design itself is elegant and instantly recognizable. On the front of the coin you see the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, a leader whose legacy remains deeply tied to American history. His profile faces left, surrounded by the words Liberty and In God We Trust, along with the year of minting. For the 1985 P dime, the small letter P just beside the date identifies the Philadelphia Mint as the place where the coin was struck. On the reverse side, the design features a torch at the center, representing liberty, flanked by an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence. The words United States of America and 1 dime complete the design. Millions upon millions of these coins were produced. But here is the important part of the story. Most of them were used heavily in everyday commerce. They were dropped on hard surfaces, scraped against other coins, and exposed to years of wear. The sharp lines of the design slowly faded as the coins moved through the economy. That means the number of surviving examples in truly exceptional condition is far smaller than the original mintage would suggest. This is something that experienced collectors understand very well. A coin does not become valuable simply because it exists. It becomes valuable when collectors compete to obtain the finest examples available. When only a small number of coins meet those high standards, the market begins to reward those rare pieces. For the 1985 P Roosevelt Dime, the hunt for pristine examples has become increasingly competitive. Professional grading services have examined many of these coins over the years, carefully evaluating their condition and assigning grades that reflect their quality. The highest graded examples stand at the very top of the population, and those coins are the ones that capture the most attention when they appear at auction. Collectors who specialize in the Roosevelt Dime series often attempt to build complete sets of the coin in the highest possible grade. This means they are constantly searching for the finest versions of each year and mint mark, and when a truly exceptional 1985 P dime appears, those collectors take notice. This is where the excitement begins, because sometimes the difference between a coin worth a few cents and a coin worth a significant amount of money comes down to details that can only be seen with careful inspection. The sharpness of Roosevelt's hair, the clarity of the torch flames on the reverse, the smooth, reflective surfaces that show minimal marks from contact with other coins. Each of these elements contributes to the overall grade and desirability of the coin. Collectors who understand these factors are willing to compete for coins that meet their standards. That competition is what drives prices higher. And this is why the 1985 P Roosevelt Dime has slowly gained a reputation as a coin worth checking carefully. Because somewhere out there, hidden in old collections, forgotten coin rolls, or even loose change, there may still be examples that have never been closely examined. Think about how many coins pass through people's hands every single day. How many times have you received change from a store and immediately placed the coins into your pocket without looking at them? How many jars of coins are sitting in homes right now, waiting for someone to finally sort through them? The truth is that valuable coins are often discovered in the most unexpected places. Some of the most exciting stories in coin collecting begin with a simple moment of curiosity when someone decides to take a closer look at what they already own. And when that happens, the results can be surprising. Imagine the moment when someone pulls out a small group of dimes and begins examining them one by one. Most of them show obvious signs of wear. Some are darkened from years of circulation, but then one coin catches the light differently. Its surface looks brighter. The details look sharper. The date reads 1985, and just beside it is the small letter P at first. It might not seem like anything special, but for someone who understands the growing interest in high-quality Roosevelt dimes, that moment could be the beginning of something exciting. Because coins like this are not just pieces of metal. They are small pieces of history that have traveled through time, surviving decades of use while retaining the qualities that collectors admire. And every once in a while, one of those coins turns out to be far more valuable than anyone expected. Later in this video, we will reveal just how much a top-tier example of the 1985 P Roosevelt Dime has been known to reach in the collector market. But before we get there, it is important to understand why coins like this capture so much attention. Coin collecting is not just about money. It is about the thrill of the hunt, the appreciation of craftsmanship, and the connection to history that each coin represents. The Roosevelt Dime series spans generations of American life. These coins have passed through the hands of millions of people, quietly witnessing decades of economic and cultural change. Every coin carries a story, and sometimes that story leads to something remarkable. So the next time you come across a handful of dimes, take a closer look. Check the dates. Look for the mint marks. Pay attention to the condition. because among those ordinary coins could be something extraordinary. And if you happen to discover a truly exceptional example of the 1985 P Roosevelt Dime, you might find yourself holding a coin that collectors are willing to pay serious money to obtain. In fact, when the finest known examples of this coin appear in the market, they can command astonishing prices. A top condition 1985 P Roosevelt Dime has reached values around $63,000. Yes, a coin that most people would normally spend without a second thought has the potential to be worth tens of thousands of dollars when it meets the highest standards that collectors demand. That is the fascinating world of rare coins. And we are just getting started. Because coming up next is another Roosevelt dime that has an even more surprising story behind it, the 1966 dime that collectors continue searching for today. Before we move to the next coin, take a moment and think about what we just discussed. A simple dime that many people would barely notice can reach astonishing levels of value when the right combination of rarity, preservation, and collector demand comes together. That idea alone is what keeps millions of collectors searching through coins every single day. And now we move to the second coin on this list, a Roosevelt dime that carries a very different but equally fascinating story. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime. At first glance, the 1966 dime may appear even more ordinary than the previous coin we discussed. In fact, most people would never imagine that a coin from the mid-1960s could attract the kind of attention it receives from serious collectors today. After all, the 1960s were a time when enormous numbers of coins were produced in the United States to keep up with the demands of a rapidly growing economy. The country was changing quickly during that era. New businesses were opening, the population was expanding, and everyday commerce required a constant supply of coins moving through the system. The United States Mint responded by producing coins in massive quantities to ensure that banks, businesses, and consumers always had the change they needed. Because of this, many people assume coins from the 1960s are extremely common and therefore not particularly valuable. But as experienced collectors know, the story behind a coin is rarely that simple. The year 1966 sits right in the middle of one of the most interesting periods in modern American coinage history. Just a year earlier, in 1965, the United States made a major change to its coinage system. Rising silver prices had created a situation where the metal inside certain coins was becoming more valuable than the coins themselves. This led to widespread hoarding, as people began pulling silver coins out of circulation and saving them. To address the problem, the composition of several coins was changed. Dimes and quarters were no longer made from silver. Instead, they were produced using a copper-nickel-clad composition that allowed the mint to continue producing coins without relying on precious metals. The 1966 Roosevelt dime was part of this new era of coinage. It represented a transition period in American currency, when the country moved away from silver coins and into the modern clad coinage system that still exists today. But there is another important detail about coins from this time that many people overlook. During the years from 1965 through 1967, the United States Mint made a very unusual decision. Mint marks, which normally identify where a coin was produced, were temporarily removed from circulating coins. This meant that dimes from 1966 do not carry the familiar letters like P, D, or S that collectors usually look for. At the time, the idea behind this decision was to discourage collectors from hoarding coins based on mint marks. Officials hoped that by removing those identifying letters, the coins would circulate more freely and shortages would ease. What no one could fully predict was how this period would later become an intriguing chapter in the history of American coin collecting. Because when mint marks disappear, collectors begin focusing even more closely on other details: strike quality, surface condition. Subtle variations that distinguish truly exceptional examples from the average coins that pass through everyday transactions. For the 1966 Roosevelt dime, these details have become extremely important. Think about how long these coins have been circulating. Nearly 6 decades have passed since they were first released into the economy. During that time, the vast majority of them were used in countless transactions. They were dropped into vending machines, tossed into cash registers, carried through pockets and coin purses, and exposed to years of wear. Every contact with another coin, every fall onto a hard surface, every moment of friction inside a pocket slowly wore down the design. That means the number of surviving examples that still display sharp details and strong original luster is much smaller than the original production numbers might suggest. Collectors who specialize in high-grade coins understand this reality very well. They are not just looking for any 1966 dime. They are searching for the rare examples that somehow avoided decades of heavy damage and still look remarkably close to the day they were struck. Finding coins like that is incredibly difficult. Imagine a coin being produced in 1966 and then somehow spending the next 50 or 60 years without being heavily worn. Perhaps it was set aside in a coin roll that was never opened. Maybe it was stored in a collection where it remained untouched for decades. Or perhaps it simply moved through circulation very lightly before someone recognized its condition and preserved it. However it happened, those few surviving coins become incredibly important to collectors who are trying to assemble the finest possible sets. And this is where the story becomes exciting. Because collectors are not just casual observers. Many of them spend years studying tiny details that most people would never notice. They learn how to evaluate the sharpness of a strike, how to recognize original mint luster, and how to detect surface marks that affect a coin's overall grade. When a coin meets the highest standards in all of those areas, it becomes something truly special. Professional grading services exist specifically to evaluate these factors. Experts examine coins under magnification, studying every element of the design and surface condition before assigning a grade that reflects its preservation. The highest graded coins are the ones that collectors compete for most aggressively. And when only a handful of examples reach those top levels, the prices can climb dramatically. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime has slowly developed a reputation in this exact category. While millions of them were produced, the number that survived in extraordinary condition is extremely limited. As collectors continue building high-quality Roosevelt Dime sets, they are constantly searching for the finest examples they can locate. This creates a situation where demand steadily builds over time. Now imagine a collector attending a coin auction where a remarkable 1966 Roosevelt Dime appears for sale. The coin has been carefully preserved. Its surfaces still shine with original luster. The design details remain crisp and well-defined. For collectors who have spent years searching for a coin like this, the moment becomes very important. Bidding begins at first. The price moves slowly. Then another collector raises the bid. Another follows. Each person in the room understands that opportunities like this are rare. The competition becomes more intense as the price climbs higher and higher. This is how ordinary coins transform into extraordinary collectibles. Not because they were designed to be rare, but because time and circumstance quietly reduce the number of exceptional survivors. And when collectors finally encounter one of those survivors, they are willing to compete for it. Stories like this are what make coin collecting so fascinating. The discovery of a rare coin can happen almost anywhere. A family cleaning out an old relative's belongings might uncover a small envelope filled with coins that were saved decades earlier. Someone sorting through a forgotten piggy bank might notice a coin that looks brighter and sharper than the rest. A roll of old dimes from a bank might contain a coin that has been waiting patiently for someone to recognize its condition. Every one of those situations has happened before, and they continue happening today. The world of coin collecting is filled with stories of unexpected discoveries that began with a simple decision to look more closely at something ordinary. That is why experienced collectors encourage people to examine their coins carefully instead of immediately spending them. Because once a rare or valuable coin disappears back into circulation, it may never be recognized again. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime is a perfect example of how history, condition, and collector demand can combine to create something remarkable. Most examples of the coin remain worth only their face value. They continue moving quietly through the economy just as they always have. But every once in a while, an exceptional example appears. A coin that survived decades in near-perfect condition. A coin that stands out immediately when placed beside ordinary circulated pieces. When collectors encounter those rare examples, the excitement is very real, and the value attached to those coins can be astonishing. Because in the highest levels of preservation, the 1966 Roosevelt Dime has been known to reach extraordinary prices in the collector market. In fact, a top-quality example of the 1966 Roosevelt Dime has reached a value around $96,000. Yes, a single 10-cent coin that most people would never look at twice has the potential to reach nearly $100,000 when it meets the highest standards collectors are searching for. And that realization leads to an important question. How many of these coins might still be hiding in old collections, coin jars, or forgotten rolls of change? No one knows for certain. But the possibility that one could still be discovered is exactly what keeps collectors searching. And we are not finished yet, because the next coin on our list has its own fascinating story, one that takes us to the Denver Mint and a Roosevelt dime that continues to surprise collectors today. The 1978 D Roosevelt Dime. Now let us move forward to the third coin on this list, and this one brings us to a different mint facility and a different story that has slowly captured the attention of collectors across the United States. The 1978 D Roosevelt Dime. To understand why this coin has become so interesting to collectors, you have to imagine the environment inside the Denver Mint during the late 1970s. The facility was operating at a tremendous pace. Millions upon millions of coins were being produced every single day to supply banks and businesses across the country. Workers monitored large coin presses that struck coins with incredible speed and precision. Sheets of metal were cut into blanks, blanks were fed into presses, and within seconds fully struck coins were dropping into large bins ready to begin their journey into circulation. The goal of the mint was efficiency. Coins needed to be produced quickly and in massive quantities to keep the economy running smoothly. No one inside the mint expected that decades later collectors would be examining these coins under magnification, searching for the finest examples that survived. The 1978 D Roosevelt Dime was one of the many coins produced during this busy time. The letter D beside the date identifies the Denver Mint as the place where it was struck. For collectors, that small letter tells an important part of the coin's story. Denver has long been one of the major minting facilities in the United States, and coins produced there have traveled through every corner of the country. Once released, these coins moved through banks, stores, vending machines, and countless everyday transactions. Think about how many times a dime changes hands in a single year. It might start its journey in a bankroll that is delivered to a grocery store. From there, it passes to a customer as change. The customer uses it in a vending machine, where it is collected and eventually returned to a bank. From the bank, it moves again into another roll, then back into circulation. Over years and decades, this process repeats thousands of times. Each time the coin moves, it experiences a little more wear. Tiny scratches appear on the surface as coins rub against each other. The high points of the design begin to flatten slightly. The bright shine of fresh mint luster gradually fades. That is the normal life of a circulating coin. Because of this, the majority of 1978 D dimes that still exist today show clear evidence of long use. They are worn, dull, and marked by years of contact with other coins and surfaces. But every once in a while something unusual happens. A coin escapes this process. Maybe it was placed into a coin roll that was stored away and forgotten. Maybe it was saved by someone who simply liked collecting coins from different years. Maybe it was tucked into a small collection where it remained untouched for decades. However it happened, a small number of 1978 D Roosevelt dimes managed to survive in remarkable condition. And when collectors began noticing just how rare those pristine examples were, interest in the coin began to grow. The difference between an ordinary circulated coin and a truly exceptional one can be dramatic when viewed closely. Under proper lighting, a high-grade example still reflects the brilliant luster that was created the moment the coin was struck. The portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt appears sharp and detailed. The lines of his hair remain clearly defined. The fields around the portrait look smooth and reflective rather than scratched or dull. Turn the coin over, and the torch design on the reverse stands out with crisp edges. The olive branch and oak branch appear strong and well-formed. Even the smallest elements of the design look clean and distinct. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes pay very close attention to these details. For them, finding a coin that retains this level of preservation after so many decades is incredibly exciting. It represents the kind of discovery that every collector hopes to make at least once. Professional grading services have documented just how few of these coins exist in the highest grades. Experts carefully examine each coin submitted for grading, evaluating the strength of the strike, the condition of the surfaces, and the presence of any marks or imperfections. When a coin meets the strictest standards, it receives a top-tier grade. And once that happens, the coin enters a completely different category in the eyes of collectors. Now imagine a dedicated Roosevelt dime collector who has spent years assembling a complete high-grade set. Each coin in the collection has been carefully selected for its quality. The collector has searched through auctions, coin shows, and dealer inventories to find the best examples available. But one space in the collection remains difficult to fill: the 1978 D dime in exceptional condition. The collector has seen many examples over the years, but most of them fall short of the desired quality. Perhaps the surfaces show too many contact marks. Maybe the strike is slightly weak. Maybe the luster has faded. Then one day, the right coin appears. It is placed inside a protective holder from a respected grading service. The grade indicates that it ranks among the finest known examples of the coin. The surfaces glow with original brilliance. The design looks nearly perfect. For a collector who has been waiting years for this opportunity, the moment is significant. The coin becomes the final piece needed to complete a remarkable collection. But the collector is not alone. Other collectors are searching for the same coin, and they understand how rare it is to find one of this quality. When the coin appears in an auction, multiple bidders begin competing for it. The price starts climbing. Each new bid reflects the growing recognition that this is not just another dime. It is one of the finest surviving examples of a coin that most people would never think twice about. This is the moment when ordinary currency transforms into a valuable collectible. The story of the 1978 D Roosevelt Dime reminds us that rarity does not always come from low mintage numbers. Sometimes it comes from the simple passage of time and the difficulty of preserving coins in perfect condition. Millions were produced, but only a very small number survived in truly outstanding shape. And when collectors finally encounter those rare survivors, they are willing to compete for them. Think about how many coins are sitting unnoticed in drawers, jars, and old collections right now. Most people never examine them closely. They assume every dime is worth exactly 10 cents and nothing more. But collectors know better. They know that the next great discovery could be hiding among those ordinary coins. That possibility is what keeps the hobby alive. Every day, people search through rolls of coins from banks. They examine estate collections that have been untouched for decades. They look through old piggy banks and jars filled with change. Most of the time, they find nothing unusual. But every once in a while, a coin appears that changes everything. The 1978 D Roosevelt Dime has become one of those coins that collectors always look for. Because when a truly exceptional example surfaces, the excitement spreads quickly through the collecting community. Word travels fast when a rare high-grade coin appears. Dealers discuss it. Collectors analyze its details. Auction houses prepare to present it to bidders who understand its significance. And when the bidding finally begins, the value attached to that small 10-cent coin can become astonishing. Because the finest known examples of the 1978 D Roosevelt Dime have reached values around $68,000. Think about that for a moment. A coin originally created to represent just 10 cents can become worth tens of thousands of dollars simply because it survived the passage of time in extraordinary condition. That is the power of rarity in the world of coin collecting. But we are not finished yet. There is one more coin on this list, and its story is just as fascinating as the others. It brings us back to the Philadelphia Mint and a Roosevelt dime that collectors continue searching for today. The 1981 P Roosevelt Dime. And the story behind this final coin might surprise you even more. Now we arrive at the fourth and final coin in this list, and this one brings us back once again to the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, it may appear no different from thousands of other dimes that have passed through people's hands over the past several decades. Yet among collectors, this particular coin has quietly developed a reputation that continues to grow stronger with every passing year. The 1981 P Roosevelt Dime. To understand why this coin has become so intriguing, you have to picture the early 1980s in the United States. The country was moving through a period of economic change. Inflation had been a major concern during the late 1970s, and the nation was adjusting to new financial realities. Businesses were expanding, technology was beginning to accelerate, and millions of coins were being used every day in ordinary transactions. Inside the Philadelphia Mint, massive coin presses were operating around the clock. Their purpose was simple but extremely important: produce the coins that would keep commerce flowing smoothly across the country. Every day, huge quantities of dimes were struck, counted, packaged, and shipped to Federal Reserve banks before eventually spreading into circulation. The 1981 P Roosevelt Dime was one of those coins. When it was first minted, it carried no sense of rarity or importance. It was simply another 10-cent coin entering the American economy. Workers at the mint did not set these coins aside as special pieces. They were not marketed as collectibles. They were not treated as rare treasures. They were meant to be spent. And that is exactly what happened. Most of the 1981 P dimes produced that year went directly into circulation. They passed from banks to businesses, from cash registers to customers, and from pockets to vending machines. For years, they continued moving through the economy just like every other coin. Think about the life of a coin in circulation. It may travel through thousands of hands. It may bounce around inside pockets alongside keys and other coins. It may fall onto hard floors, scrape against metal surfaces, or spend months inside cash drawers. Every one of those moments slowly affects the coin's surface. Tiny marks appear. The brilliant shine that once covered the coin begins to fade. The highest parts of the design slowly lose their sharpness. This gradual wear is simply part of the normal life of circulating currency. Because of this process, truly pristine examples of older coins become increasingly difficult to find as the years pass. This is where the story of the 1981 P Roosevelt Dime becomes interesting. Collectors who specialize in the Roosevelt Dime series began noticing that exceptional examples of this coin were surprisingly scarce. While circulated versions were easy to find, coins that retained strong original luster, crisp details, and minimal surface marks were far less common. At first, this observation did not attract widespread attention. But within the coin collecting community, small observations can grow into major areas of interest. Experienced collectors began searching more carefully. They examined coin rolls from banks. They checked old collections that had been assembled decades earlier. They looked through dealer inventories hoping to locate the best preserved examples available. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. High-grade 1981 P dimes were not easy to locate. When a coin series has millions of examples in circulation, collectors often assume that perfect coins must be easy to find. But the opposite is often true. The more a coin circulates, the fewer pristine examples survive. Most coins live hard lives. Only a small number escape that fate. Those rare survivors are the coins collectors compete for. Professional grading services have played an important role in documenting the scarcity of top-quality examples. Experts examine coins carefully under magnification, studying every detail of the strike and every mark on the surface before assigning a grade that reflects the coin's preservation. The highest grades represent coins that appear almost exactly as they did when they left the mint. These coins still display strong mint luster that reflects light in a distinctive way. The portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt remains sharply defined, with clear lines in the hair and facial features. The fields of the coin appear smooth and clean rather than covered with scratches or wear. On the reverse side, the torch design stands out with remarkable clarity. The olive branch and oak branch remain crisp and detailed, and the lettering surrounding the design appears bold and well-defined. Coins that meet these strict standards are extremely desirable to collectors. Imagine a collector who has spent years assembling a complete Roosevelt Dime collection in the highest possible grades. Each coin in the set represents careful searching, patience, and a deep appreciation for the series. But completing such a collection is rarely easy. Some dates and mint marks prove more difficult than others, especially when the goal is to find coins that remain in exceptional condition after decades of existence. The 1981 P dime is one of those coins that can surprise collectors. At first, it seems common. But when the search focuses only on the very finest examples, the challenge becomes much greater. Now picture a coin show where collectors from across the country have gathered. Dealers display coins inside glass cases while collectors move slowly from table to table examining inventory. One dealer places a newly graded coin into the display. It is a 1981 P Roosevelt Dime, and the grade assigned to it places the coin among the finest known examples. Almost immediately, experienced collectors begin taking notice. They recognize the strong strike. They see the clean surfaces and vibrant luster. They understand that coins of this quality rarely appear on the market. Soon several collectors begin discussing the coin. Each one realizes that opportunities like this do not appear often. If the coin is sold today, it may be many years before another example of similar quality appears again. Moments like this are what make coin collecting so exciting. The coin that most people would spend without hesitation suddenly becomes the center of intense interest among knowledgeable collectors. And when such coins appear in auctions, the competition can become very serious. Bidders who have been searching for years may finally see their opportunity to acquire the coin they need. Each new bid pushes the price higher as collectors compete for the chance to own one of the finest examples known. This is how the value of a small 10-cent coin can rise far beyond anything most people would ever imagine. Because value in the collector world is not determined by face value. It is determined by rarity, condition, and demand. The 1981 P Roosevelt Dime represents a perfect example of this principle. Millions were minted, millions were spent. Millions were worn down through decades of circulation. But only a very small number survived in the kind of remarkable condition that collectors dream of finding. And those coins have become the focus of intense interest. Think about the coins sitting in your home right now. Maybe you have a jar of spare change that has been slowly filling for years. Maybe there are old coins stored in a drawer that belong to a parent or grandparent. Inside those collections could be coins that have never been carefully examined. Most people simply assume that all dimes are worth exactly 10 cents. But collectors know that assumption is not always correct. Sometimes a coin survives decades of history while retaining the qualities that collectors value most. When that happens, the coin can become something extraordinary. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching every single day. They search through rolls of coins from banks. They examine estate collections. They check flea markets and coin shops. They study coins under magnification, hoping to discover something special. Because every once in a while, someone finds a coin that changes everything. The 1981 P Roosevelt Dime has become one of those coins that collectors always keep an eye out for. And when the finest known examples appear in the collector market, the value attached to them can be truly astonishing. In fact, a top-tier example of the 1981 P Roosevelt Dime has reached values around $70,000. Think about that for a moment. A coin that most people would treat as ordinary pocket change can become worth tens of thousands of dollars when it survives in exceptional condition. That realization brings us back to the question we asked at the very beginning of this video. Do you have one of these rare and valuable Roosevelt dimes? Because the 4 coins we discussed today have captured the attention of collectors across the country. The 1985 P Roosevelt Dime reaching values around $63,000. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime reaching values around $96,000. The 1978 D Roosevelt Dime reaching values around $68,000. And the 1981 P Roosevelt Dime reaching values around $70,000. Each one started its life as a simple 10-cent coin. Each one moved quietly through the economy for years. And each one reminds us that extraordinary value can sometimes hide inside the most ordinary objects. So the next time you receive change or come across a handful of old coins, take a closer look before you spend them. Check the dates. Look for the mint marks. Pay attention to the condition. Because somewhere out there, one of these coins could still be waiting to be discovered. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned, because the next rare coin we explore might be hiding in your pocket right now.